Welcome, everybody. You are listening to the Startup Secrets for Entrepreneurs, and I am your host, Shelby Oleschlager. Our mission here is to help entrepreneurs make a difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. Join me today where we dig deep with our guests to give you the best concepts and strategies to fast track your business. Today, our special guest is Rafi. You're going to have to tell us your name fully because I forgot to ask how to pronounce it. But to get started, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. Give us a bit of an introduction of who you are and what you do.
Sure. It's Rafi Pryntz-Nadworny. It took me until like 10 years old to be able to write that out.
Awesome.
So those hippie names where my parents decided to join both their last names. And so
I like it. Yeah.
I still have to figure out what my children are going to look like, how long it's going to be. But I am a marketing operation specialist by day. I've been doing that for almost 7 years now. And I worked in a startup for most of my career, doing every possible thing. I like to say that I'm the black sheep of my family because I have older brothers who work for Cirque du Soleil and the younger brothers who used to do, competitive dancing, like one was classical ballet. So, and my dad's a professional magician as well. So I like to think I'm the black sheep because I went into like marketing operations, spreadsheets and data.
Yeah. What made you want to get into that?
It's kind of a growing path. So I love psychology and art. And that's kind of what I do in my businesses is combine the best of those two worlds. So I started with advertising because I thought, coming up with the skits and the collateral for advertising involved both, art and marketing. And then, I've kind of progressed along that path to where I am now, which is more of the technical side, but it's enabling people to, use that psychology and art that most marketers use. Career.
Nice. So what are the things that you've kind of learned within your experience of the art and also the marketing? Like, what are some of the main key things that you're able to help people with, or that you notice that people?
Yeah. So when it comes to like startups and things like that, I've been fascinated with this. I think I was like 13 when I started like, hey, I have business ideas. And I literally have a book of ideas. I just say, name a category. I'll open up a chapter. I'm like, here's 5 ideas that I've had for it. But I see a lot of people struggle, and myself, included. I like the joke that I'm a senior procrastinator with over 20 years of experience. And there's a lot of reason for procrastination. And I, as a procrastination way, is to do more research than necessary, right? So like picking colleges was a nightmare because I just researched the crap out of it. But it's also helpful because I've learned a ton about entrepreneurship and the factors that prevent people from actually building their ideas or businesses, right? Because I think there's a lot of us who let ideas go down the shower drain without taking action just because we let those mental barriers stop us. Not even getting to like, market testing, MVPs, and then, getting initial funding, whether you're bootstrapped or whatever. So like there's a lot of barriers there. And so when I've looked at the neuroscience and psychology behind why people are struggling, especially entrepreneurs, there's just a whole host of reasons. So I tend to focus on building momentum. So that kind of falls into my professional experience as well. Because as a marketing operations, I'm taking the processes that a business is doing and then making them better, right? Whether it's making them, no longer require human input because they're automated, or, removing or changing the way that people are doing things so that data flows better or that the process flows better. And it's all tied to, the psychology of the customers. What are they thinking? What is their process? And then as well as what is the business and how the business should run most efficiently. So that in a nutshell is how I help people.
Yeah. So are you kind of hired like as a third party as the service? So you go to different businesses type thing?
No, so I've been in-house for basically my whole career. I started out house like a freelancer, but I was quickly hired by companies because it's a very fast-growing job title in the market. So a lot of people are realizing that they can't just rely on IT to kind of bridge the gap between departments, as well as just the amount of context that you need to have in order to set up what's now growing technical stacks of software. So it's now just not just one software. You have to deal with 20 different software, and you have to make sure whatever you're trying to do as a marketing, sales, success department is as easy as possible. So IT does a great job as far as managing infrastructure, but they don't have the time or energy to learn about the context that sales, marketing, and customer support need in order to make their processes work well, right? So yeah, it's pretty easy to get a job if you have experience in marketing operation right now.
Yeah.
It's a fast growing one.
Yeah, good to know. So what exactly, like, who would your ideal clients be, or who are the people that you want to be working with?
Yeah. So when it comes to my startup that I'm growing, that is kind of a pre-incubator. So out of all the gaps that I see, so entrepreneurs are one of the loneliest professions out there, more than lawyers. They're also ones with a lot of mental issues. I love this. There was a support group for entrepreneurs, and this guy sold a company for $376 million, I believe. He's a SaaS founder. And then he was paralyzed on his floor 6 months later. He could not move because he just had a panic attack. And he's like, what's going on? But in his presentation, he had a list of the top 10 attributes for entrepreneurs, right? And he's like, raise your hand if you have 3. And it's like, make snap decisions and never look back. When you wake up in the morning, you're like, light switch on and you just go, go, go. Things like that. Just raise your hand if you have. So we all raise our hand in this webinar. He's like, hey, I lied. This isn't for entrepreneurs. This is actually for like sociopaths. They all need therapy. And so it kind of speaks to the bigger problem is that because we're labeled entrepreneurs, so people like Elon Musk or like other things, we're encouraged for these behaviors that if we were another kind of career, we would get counseling for. So the big thing that I focus on is getting people to take those first steps, to get motivated, and then to build that momentum. Because I see a lot of times, no matter if you're working on a startup, a SaaS founder, or you're trying to do like online coaching or e-commerce website, whatever it is, based on my rough math, 80% of people are kind of falling short of those first milestones of getting like a first customer or your minimum viable income that you would need to build that business. And they're stopping because of lack of support. They kind of put it in a nutshell. There's a lot of different factors on why they're stopping. They can't find the market, not a good market fit. Their product needs improvement, things like that. But in a nutshell, it's their network that's missing, right? And a lot of these successful entrepreneurs, there's a lot of great examples of the 1% who, made it rags to riches. But oftentimes the unseen network, I think, is the underlying factor on what made them successful. Yeah, they have attitude, they have drive, they things like that. But everyone is tired. Everyone loses energy. So I help a lot of people basically by allowing them to build the habits or the process or the actual automations you need in the business so that they can keep going, right? So whether it's a mental thing or whether it's a business thing.
Yeah. Has there been many things that you noticed, like actual challenges that people face to overcome these type of things? Like anything specifically?
Yeah. So let's talk procrastination. Do you procrastinate at all?
Everyone does.
All right. Very cool. Do you have any idea on why you're procrastination?
Because I'm not focused.
A few questions. You're not focused. Okay. Yeah. So is it because there's too many things to focus on or that you're bored with the thing that you need to get done?
It's typically there's too many things in my case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, perfect. So here's a great example. Thank you for being my volunteer.
This is perfect.
So what I do is I help people with understanding how the brain works and talk about neuroscience. I'm not a neuroscientist, but because of my procrastination habits of researching lots of neuroscience articles, I kind of know a little tips and tricks. So when you're overwhelmed with a lot of different things, which is very common for a lot of the people in our audience, the entrepreneurs, they found that it's kind of burdening your short-term memory. right? Because you have so many things in the back of your mind that you have to keep a mental list or task. So one very simple way is to get out of your mind and onto paper or onto your phone. So to get rid of that overwhelmed feeling whenever you're like, oh, there's too much stuff to do, is you just write it down on a piece of paper, right? And I do this a lot. And you start, it's not going to happen immediately, but within the next, hour, 2 hours, things like that, I start saying, oh, I don't have to think about it. I know it's on the list, right? And whenever I have a thought of like, oh, shoot, I have to remember this, I throw it down and I feel calmer. And then I stress out about like what's on the list and like priorities, but it shifts it so that when I have the task ahead, I'm very clear on what I need to do. I don't have to think about the other thoughts. So this is just like one technique I would do to help people. But there's no right answer. For another technique, it took me 3 years to tweak to get it right. And that's the checklist technique. To give you an idea on how that works, is that if you did something that day, you check it off. And you get motivation from having a string of days that you accomplish. So you're like, oh, I got 30 days in a row, or, you get a trend. And the idea is that you get motivated with that trend. And it took me 3 years of tweaking. So whenever people talk about like self-help books or like the key way to stop procrastination, I kind of sit back because I think everyone needs to have a full tool belt and know when to use which tool.
And there's nothing like having to learn it your own self, like firsthand experience to really bring that forth with the people you're helping. So it's like, I have been down this path. You know what I mean? It's like, I know what it is like to be, would you say, a senior procrastinator is your title? So with that, I'm curious, like, so you're helping these people uncover these things from your own experience and helping businesses, with their marketing. So how has it been with you growing your marketing for trying to coach people and trying to grab and gain your own audience? One sec. I can't hear you. Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yeah.
Better? Okay. Sorry, my microphone cut off. I'm going to send it into the office or the repair shop. So when I'm helping people, so let's talk about my business. So my business is Idea Strider. I help people. Can you still hear me? Yep. Help people get from their ideas to reality, right? And when it comes to the business, it always takes longer than I think it should be, right? Even though I help, corporations do this as my full-time job, when I try to do it myself, I'm like, oh, I should be able to get this 2 months. I read this case study where they're able to get it in 30 days. I should be able to get it 2 months because I have the skills. So it's a lot slower. And the reason is I have a unique approach where I'm not trying to focus on one single business as conventional advice, because I'm trying to develop a case study for people that are kind of multi-passionate. So I have like 3 different businesses that I'm juggling right now. So that's basically the reason why it's taking longer. If I could focus or wanted to focus on that one task or one business, it would grow faster. But because I'm trying to prove a point that you don't have to focus in order to have a successful business or to grow one, it's taking longer.
Yeah, fair enough. So what are these businesses like? Do they all work together?
No, they're very separate. Yeah. And the idea there is that when we're talking about like getting your idea to reality, what does it take? There's a lot of people, and I think it's, I read somewhere, I have to find the original study, but ADD, people with ADD have a 70 to 80% higher likelihood of becoming self-employed or entrepreneurs. So this is one of the segments that I'm kind of focusing on and trying to help out, is that they can't focus on one idea the 100% of the time, everything like that. So in order to prove it, I have 3 totally different ideas. So one is the Idea Strider, which is kind of like a coaching platform that connects you with other people trying to build the similar business models. So you get the accountability buddies, you get a panelist that you could call on for any expertise that you need that your group doesn't provide. And of course, you get a lot of the neuroscience on how to overcome your own procrastination, as well as like business operations on how to like set up your business to scale. Another business idea I have, because I'm in Hawaii, is a giant inflatable obstacle course for the ocean. So totally, this is like looking at opportunities in the marketplace. There's bouncy houses in Alaska. There's 36 different states. Hawaii does not have one. So I saw that as a business opportunity. So that's another idea. And then the third one I'm working on right now is a software review site. And that's related to my career and what I see as far as potential gaps in the market.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. So I'm curious about like the community and panelist type idea. Is that something that that's already been working, that you're building? Yeah.
So I've been experimenting a lot with different kinds of accountability groups for the last 3 years now. And there are aspects of this already out there, right? There's a ton of entrepreneur communities that are fantastic. And this is kind of my own flavored blend because, everyone, will drink Coke, they'll drink some like juice, wine, whatever it is. Everyone has their own taste. So I'm kind of building my own flavor of the entrepreneur community. So it's kind of tying in all the aspects that I saw that entrepreneurs who are trying to get from idea to reality were missing. And it's trying to like pull that into a bundle. So one is procrastination, right? A lot of people, there's this great study that showed that the idea that you're working with someone else, so you're not actually working with someone. They had everyone isolated in the study to be, the only person in the room, but they were told, some of them, that they're going to work with other people and help them. The other ones, they just told they're working on their own. 65% of them worked harder, they worked longer, they had better results, and they felt happier doing the work. Wow. So the crux of the program is having better versions of accountability buddies, which I call startup squads. And the idea there is you have people who are working on the exact same type of business as you with different skills. So as a marketer, I might not be the greatest writer there or designer or things like that. But if you pair me with the people that have the skills I'm missing, I could accelerate so much farther because now I could barter time for time because I could do something that would take them 10 hours in 1 hour and vice versa. So that's kind of like the core aspect of it. And then the panelists are there for, basically on-call resources because I can't tell you how many times I had a business idea and I had to learn the entire industry. I had to learn the market and things like that over and over again when it could have been a 5-minute call with an expert who is already familiar, where they're like, yes or no. Mm-hmm. So the panelist idea comes about from Startup Weekend, if you're familiar with that kind of program. We have, I think it's 72 hours to go from idea to a business. And you're put into these teams, you're working night and day, and they have experts on call from that community who, if you have a question, they're right there. You walk into the room, you're like, how do they help? So that's my version of that, where you have a panelist who are basically on call so that you can get unstuck as soon as possible and you're not just kind of spinning your gears trying to, well, I don't know, and I have to research. So that's another aspect of it. And then the third one, of course, is giving people the structure that would fit their kind of business models. Because a lot of times people have great ideas, they have great support, and then they're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And a lot of time it's people are just shooting in the dark until they hit something. And there are ways, whether you're doing statistical analysis like hypotheses testing, or if you're just doing like rudimentary like learnings to make that whole process easier on yourself, right? So that you don't have to do 2,000 interviews. You could do 20 before you have an idea of what your customers want and need. So like providing that kind of frameworks to help people grow faster, because everyone's going to have to like learn by, trying things. There's no silver bullet in entrepreneurship where you follow these 7 steps every time your business will succeed. It doesn't work like that. But there are ways of making people's learning process easier. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of like the 3 aspects of my program.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really unique, and just like you said, your own flavor of it. It really brings together all the components to make successful entrepreneurs, especially the last part. I just want to say, like, you can teach people to almost be their own best coach in a sense. Instead of learning these things, it's like, how about let's get you to the point where you can actually like really teach yourself and learn what works best for you. Because like you said, there is no quick fix. So I really like that. I'm curious, now that you've kind of developed this and it's been going, what is your next goals? Like, what does your next year look like as far as this business?
Yeah. So, like many businesses, my idea is to grow and establish a program. I already have, 6 phases planned out on how I want to see that eventually, like I could maybe even have this as some sort of business that people could, I'm trying to think of the word, tip of my tongue. It's like a McDonald's where you franchise. Thank you. So like from where I am now to like franchising it out so that I could like grow the entrepreneur communities worldwide. Because I really have a strong mission, because I found that in America and in many countries, according to the Global Entrepreneur Monitor, which is a survey of 52 different countries on entrepreneurs, half of would-be entrepreneurs are not doing anything because they're afraid of failure. Half in the U.S. And U.S. is like one of the countries that I think entrepreneurships or entrepreneurs are kind of like socially looked up on. They're supported, things like that. And that is a mind-blowing statistics. And so that's kind of my end goal, and what I think for next year is that I want to reach more people who all it takes is like a mental mind shift, whether it's, I don't have the support I need, I don't know what I'm doing, I have too many things to do, whatever it takes them to get their idea out of their head and into reality. Whether the idea in the market, fit and like it's a successful idea, fine. I'll leave that for the incubators, the startup incubators and the programs that already exist. But just to get their ideas out of their head, because I think a lot of people, I heard this great quote is, how many ghosts of the ideas that you had are going to be by your deathbed at the end of your life? And I think if I could reduce the number of ghosts, that's kind of my mission. And that's been my mission this year and next year as well.
Oh, I love that. That kind of almost brings me to the next question. I always like to know people's why, where I feel like you just touched on that, but do you have anything else to add as far as what your why is with growing this?
Yes. I think the crux of it is that I have some aspects that I fit the, typical entrepreneur, but a lot of it doesn't. And yet I still want to be an entrepreneur. And so a driving passion of why I'm not focusing on just one business, like it would be sensible, it would actually, accomplish the business faster, I could, make so much more income, is that I want to prove that there has to be other roads to success rather than just following what the 1% or 0.1% successful entrepreneurs look like and do, right? There's so many self-help books about, the top 10 morning habits for Warren Buffett or like the entrepreneurs, right? And, they wake up at 7 a.m. or things like that. And you can't copy those and expect to see the same results. There's great studies just about the 7 a.m. thing, where if you're a night owl, which I am, and you wake up early to be more productive like those morning people, you get worse. By shifting your circadian rhythm, you get worse and you become less productive. And so I'm just trying to, as my reason why, show that there are many ways to achieve levels of success, whether, it's getting 6 figures or, multi-million-dollar deals or sustainable, income or just impact on the world, that the paths to success, there are thousands of them. And it's more important about getting the vehicle, the energy, gas, whatever powers your boat to get there. So I'm trying to prove different ways of entrepreneurship, right, and how to become entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. And that's very, very entrepreneurial of you anyways, just to have that approach, because it is so true. And I like that idea. Just, I'm kind of the same. It's like, I don't really like to like draw inside the lines. Like if I can be a bit of a rule breaker, it's like, I'm going to test these theories or just kind of push it a little bit. So I think that's very cool that you're doing that. And it sounds very like something that I'd want to be a part of as far as that community aspect of other entrepreneurs that are kind of, going on their own unique journey. So for anyone listening that has resonated, they want to learn more, where can they find you?
Yes, ideastrider.com. That's my website. They can find it. I have a waiting list if you want to get on to that program right there. Mm-hmm. And I also have a course that talks about all the techniques that I learned about how to overcome procrastination when it comes with doing new things, right? Because most of the time we procrastinate when it's outside our comfort zone. So I built a whole course about that, because a lot of people talk about you have to be comfortable with getting outside comfortable. You have to be comfortable, no pain, no gain. And that's another thing that I'm trying to disprove, because I think you can grow your comfort zone and then still stay within it, but just keep growing that comfort zone until it's big enough to accomplish whatever you want in life.
Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. I could give you a very tangible example. Do you have anything like a pen or something that you have on hand that you don't mind? Okay, great. So, if you humor with this exercise, so I'm going to talk for people that are listening. Grab a pen, grab a sock, ball that up, and all you're going to do is look at that pen, and then I want you to not move a single muscle in your body, but in your mind, I want you to tell yourself to drop it, right? So don't move, but tell your mind is just trying to like force your body to move, right? So, and just like try to do that and have that mental argument with your brain versus your brawn, basically, and see which one's stronger. So anyone listening, you could do this now. Pause it, see how long you could go, and see which one's going to win out. So most of the time that I've done this exercise, and I'm going to keep it short just because we do have a timeline, a lot of people won't move, right? Their body will stay exactly still. So now we're doing the same exercise, but this time I want you to immediately drop that pen.
Yeah.
Right? When you drop that pen, there was very little thought, right? You just heard my command and your body just responded. So when people are talking about like the comfort zones and things like that, we often get stuck in our head, right? We often think the things that were like, move, 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 or like I was jumping off a 30-foot cliff a couple weeks ago, right? And I gave myself more than like 5 seconds to think about it. And I chickened out and I walked down to like 26 feet and jumped off there. But I felt guilty because like, within that 5 seconds, I had the confidence and energy to go. But because I thought about it and like my mental gears started turning, it paralyzed me. And so when it comes to building that confidence, did you feel afraid about dropping your pen?
No,
right? It's simple. It's easy. Like the cost of losing a pen is nothing. And so when it comes to building your bubble, it starts with something as small as that. And so let's take public speaking, for example. It could start, I want to do a TED Talk presentation. I'm going to be quaking in my boots if I do that right now. But now I feel more than confident talking on a podcast because I practice, but I can take a step back and I will practice talking to my face in the mirror. That's within my comfort zone now. And once that's comfortable enough, I'll move to the next step, So just like with dropping a pen, eventually I could drop a baby and feel safe about catching it by the time, before it hits the ground. You obviously don't want to drop the baby and let it fall to the ground. But the point is to build your confidence in being able to handle whatever repercussions that your mind is going to throw at it, right? On stage. Oh, what if I show up and, I forget to turn on my mic or I forget to say my lines. So building that, your bubble is all about starting with what you have and taking small steps to grow that bubble.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that applies really, it's not even just for an entrepreneur, but that really applies with anything in life. Like if you're scared about asking someone out or this type of job promotion you want to get or anything, It totally is. You said just the word confidence, and it's like slowly building that confidence, or in your words, expanding that comfort zone where you are confident within that comfort zone. So I think that's really cool. That's a good example. I like to just finish off these calls if you have any last and final piece of advice or words of wisdom that you'd like to leave all the listeners.
Yes. So as someone who procrastinates a lot, if I were to tell myself 10 years or 20 years ago, one tip that would change my life and the course of where I am now, it would be act without thinking. Mm-hmm. When I had an idea or when I have a thing, I would say just move my body, just like with dropping the pen example. When something changed in my reality, it was because I was no longer thinking about it. I was taking action. And this is really hard for me, especially. But that is like the one piece I found that, changed my life. So real quick, I went from living in my friend's basement. I wasn't that happy. And now I'm living in Hawaii, which was one of my end goals in life, right? I wanted to live on a tropical island. And the thing that changed me was stop thinking so hard and just pick an action that I could do right now, right? Dropping a pen is super easy. I could do that anytime, anywhere. So picking something like as small as working 10 minutes on my business was able to change the course where I'm living in, what I thought would take me 30 years to get to.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's definitely a lot of power with that. So I hope people listening can really grasp that and drop the pen. Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And I hope people that listen and are interested to learn more, that they'll go find you and connect there. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining. And this was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shelby.